On a winter night in the new town of Sage Creek, Wyoming, the wind ran flat across the plains and hit the depot like a hard fist. Snow blew under the doors and piled against the wood walls. The railroad tracks shone in short, dark lines between the drifts, then vanished into the white night. Bill Turner sat in the telegraph office with his coat still on and his gloves on the table beside him. A small lamp burned on the desk. A pot of coffee sat near the stove, but it had gone cold. Bill was the night telegraph man, and most nights were quiet enough to hear the clock tick. This night was not quiet. He leaned toward the key and tapped a question to the east. The wire gave one hard jump under his hand, then nothing. Bill waited. He tapped again. Nothing came back. He stood up at once. "Henry," he called. Henry Moss, the station agent, came in from the freight room with snow on his shoulders and ice on his beard. He was a broad man with tired eyes. He looked at Bill's face and knew at once that something was wrong. "The line is dead," Bill said. Henry swore under his breath. "Not now." He pulled the door shut against the wind and came closer to the desk. "The freight from Rawlins is still on time. It has medicine, coal, and mail for half this county." Bill nodded. He had seen the way the town had waited for that train all day. Sage Creek was still young. The boardwalks were new. The store had 2 barrels of flour left. The schoolhouse stove was burning low. 3 ranch houses outside town had sick people in them, and Dr. Sam Price had said the medicine in that freight car might matter before morning. Sam Price came through the freight room door a minute later, stamping snow from his boots. He was a thin man with a gray mustache and a leather bag under his arm. He had been waiting near the depot since dusk. "Any word?" he asked. "Not over the wire," Bill said. "Storm took it down." Sam's mouth tightened. "Then we need that train to reach town. I need those bottles. Mrs. Peterson's boy is burning up, and the Brown twins are coughing so hard they can't sleep. And..." Henry looked out the window again. The storm had closed in hard. "The trouble is, the rail past the West Bend," he said. "The section men found a crack there this afternoon. They marked it and meant to fix it at dawn." Bill turned toward him. "A crack or a break?" "It was a crack when they left. In this cold, it may be worse now." For a moment, nobody spoke. Outside, the wind pushed snow against the siding and made the boards creak. Bill looked at the wall clock. The freight was due any minute. If the engineer did not know about the rail, the train could hit it at speed. In this weather, on this dark plain, that could mean a wreck. Henry saw the look on Bill's face and shook his head. "Don't start thinking crazy thoughts. You stay here. If the train is close, we can hear it." Bill took off his gloves and put them back on again. He did not answer right away. Then he said, "If the wire is dead, the engineer may not know there is a problem." Sam set his medicine bag down with a soft thump. "You can't stop a freight train with wishful thinking, Bill." "No," Bill said. "But maybe I can stop it another way." Henry stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Bill went to the hook by the door and took down the red flag used for track work. He found a lantern in the freight room and filled it with oil from the supply can. Then he grabbed a rope, just in case. "Bill," Henry said, and now his voice was sharp. "What are you doing?" Bill held up the lantern and the flag. "I am going on the roof." Sam gave a short laugh with no humor in it. "On a night like this? You'll freeze in 5 minutes." "Maybe," Bill said. but the engineer can see a lantern. If he sees a red flag too, he'll know to slow down. Henry stepped in front of him. The storm is too thick. The train is due now, Bill said, and the rail is bad past the West Bend. We need that train stopped before it gets there. Henry opened his mouth, then shut it. He knew Bill was right. At last he said, "If you go, tie that rope around you, and if you slip, yell loud enough for the whole territory to hear you." And Bill gave a quick nod. He wrapped the rope around his coat, took the lantern in one hand and the red flag in the other, and pushed out into the storm. The depot roof was low, but the ice on it was thick. Bill climbed the back steps, one careful foot at a time. The wind hit him full in the face as soon as he reached the top. Snow stabbed his cheeks. The lantern shook in his hand, and he had to shield it with his body to keep the flame alive. He inched to the front edge of the roof and looked out. The world was almost gone. The town was a row of dark shapes below him, with a few yellow lights in windows and a lamp burning in the hotel. Beyond that was white open land and the black line of the tracks. The wind made long, thin curtains of snow move over the plain. Then Bill heard it. At first it was only a low sound under the wind, like far-off thunder. Then it grew into the hard beat of a train engine, strong and steady. A puff of white steam showed for 1 second and disappeared. The headlight was still hidden by the storm, but the sound came closer fast. Bill raised the lantern high and gripped the red flag in his other hand. He stood where the roof gave him a clear view of the track. The ice under his boots felt slick as glass. The engine rounded the long bend west of town. Its headlight cut through the snow in a bright yellow cone. Bill could see the dark front of the locomotive, then the shapes of the cars behind it. The train was moving fast, too fast for the storm. He waved the lantern hard from side to side and snapped the red flag in the wind. For 1 long second, nothing changed. Then the engine answered. Its whistle tore through the night. Steam burst from the sides. Bill heard the brakeman shout and saw the glow of the firebox as the engineer threw the throttle back. The train's wheels began to scream on the rails. Bill kept waving. His arms burned. Snow clung to his sleeves. The red flag snapped and flared in the wind like a piece of fire. The engine came on, then slowed. The great iron machine shuddered and groaned. Sparks leaped under the wheels. The whistle sounded again, short and sharp now. The brakeman leaned out from the cab and saw Bill on the roof. The engineer brought the train down harder. At last the locomotive rolled to a stop just short of the West Bend, where the track dropped into a drift and the broken rail waited in the dark. Bill lowered the lantern and let out one long breath he had not known he was holding. From below, Henry shouted, "Bill!" "Here!" Bill called back. He climbed down fast, almost slipping on the last step. Henry and Sam were already running toward the track with lanterns. The freight train stood there steaming in the snow, its wheels still, its black cars lined up behind it like a row of sleeping cows. The engineer climbed down from the cab. He was a tall man with a heavy coat and a coal-black scarf around his neck. He strode toward Bill and pulled off one glove. "Who signaled me?" he asked. "I did," Bill said. The man looked at the depot roof, then at the storm, then at Bill's red flag and the lantern in his hand. He shook his head slowly. "You likely saved this train. We were near enough to the bad rail to make a mess of the whole line." Sam came up then, breathing hard. "Are those medicine crates in the second car?" The conductor, a stocky man named Frank Dalton, climbed down on the other side of the train. He had a watch chain over his vest and snow on his cap. "Yes," he said. "And coal. And mail. We got all of it." Henry pointed down the track toward the drifted bend. "The rail is broken?" Frank and the engineer walked to it with their lanterns. Bill followed close behind. In the weak yellow light, they could see the crack in the rail had opened wide. One side had dipped under the snow. If the train had hit it at speed, the front truck could have jumped the track. In this weather, with the cars behind it, that could have turned bad in a hurry. Frank gave a low whistle. That was close. "Too close," Henry said. The engineer looked back at Bill. "You had quick eyes tonight, son." Bill rubbed the snow from his face. "I had luck." "No," Frank said. "You had a brain. Luck helped, but you did the work." There was no time for more talk. People in town had already started to come out with lanterns once they heard the whistle and saw the train stop. 2 ranch hands arrived with a sled. The hotel keeper came in a heavy coat. A boy from the livery brought a shovel. Everyone had a job. The first thing they unloaded was the medicine. Sam Price took the crate in both hands like it was made of gold. He opened it enough to check the labels, then nodded hard. "Good. Good. These are the bottles I needed." "Can you get them to the Peterson place tonight?" Bill asked. Sam patted his bag. "I can get them there now. If I don't, that boy may not see morning. End." The coal came next. Men passed the sacks from hand to hand and stacked them by the depot stove, by the schoolhouse wagon, and by the store porch. More sacks went to the hotel so the guests would not freeze. Bill loaded one after another until his shoulders ached and his palms stung from the rough cloth. The mail sacks were wet and heavy, but Henry sorted them fast. "Letters for the ranch on Dry Creek," he said, and tossed one sack into a wagon. "Bills for the store. A package for the preacher." A woman in a wool shawl came running through the snow from the street. It was Mrs. Peterson. Her face was white with worry, and she had a blanket over one arm. "Did the medicine come?" she asked Sam before she even reached him. Sam held up a small bottle. "Yes, ma'am. Right here." She let out a shaky breath and put a hand to her chest. "Thank you. Thank you so much." The doctor nodded and tucked the bottle safely in his bag. "Let's go," he said. "That boy needs it now." Frank Dalton turned to Bill and clapped him once on the shoulder. "Come on. There are more sacks to move, and I don't think your night is done yet." Bill gave a tired grin. "It looks that way." So he worked. He carried coal, then mail, then a box of canned soup for the hotel kitchen. He helped Henry unload the last crate of lamps from the baggage car. He and 2 other men slid a barrel of flour onto a sled. The train crew, the town men, and the women with lanterns all worked together in the blowing snow. Slowly, the town became warmer and brighter. Smoke began to rise from chimneys. The schoolhouse stove was filled. The store clerk stacked coal by the back door. One by one, lamps came on in windows. Near midnight, Sam Price came back from the Peterson house with snow on his coat and a tired but pleased look on his face. "The boy took the medicine," he said. "His fever is already coming down." Bill leaned against a stack of coal sacks and smiled for the first time in hours. "Good." Sam looked toward the train, then back at Bill. "You saved more than the train tonight." Bill did not answer. He was too tired for big words. He only nodded and took the hot coffee Henry handed him from a tin cup. The storm kept going through the night. Snow hissed against the depot walls and drifted over the tracks. The broken rail waded out past the bend, but now nobody would meet it by surprise. At dawn, the crew would fix it. Until then, the train sat safe in the siding, its engine warm and its freight secure. Long after the last box was carried off, Bill climbed the depot steps once more and looked back at the roof. The lantern was gone now, but in his mind he could still see it there, bright against the snow, and he could still hear the freight engine answering his signal. Behind him, the town of Sage Creek was alive. The sick had medicine. The stoves had coal. The mail had come through. The people who lived on the plain could make it through one more hard night. Bill Turner's coat was wet, his hands were sore, and his face was stung raw by the wind. Still, when he sat back down at the telegraph desk and put his hands near the stove, he felt better than he had all night. The wire was still dead. The storm was not done. But the train had stopped in time, and the little town on the Wyoming plains had what it needed to face the dark. Outside, the first pale light of morning began to touch the snow.